In this video, I would like to go over some of the basics of fractions that you'll experience while in ALEKS. There are quite a few homework assignments dedicated to fractions, and I'm just going to sort of make a briefer video reviewing some of the rules. And I'd like to start off by talking about how you would go about multiplying and dividing fractions, and I'll save adding and subtracting, which tends to be the harder concept, to the end of the video. But multiplying is pretty simple in that when you multiply two fractions, sometimes you'll see in ALEKS there's more than one explanation, and they do something called cross-reducing, which is if you notice when you're multiplying that diagonally there's something in common, there's a way to eliminate or reduce what they have in common. And I'm looking at my ALEKS screen. Actually, I don't have one of these up at the moment. I was going to look. I don't cross-reduce because a lot of students don't understand it or don't know how. So the way I do it is I actually just multiply or divide the regular way that I'm going to show you now, and I always reduce as my last step. I also encourage students, if they have a graphing calculator, to do these steps out by hand, but I will tell you that there's an easy way to reduce on the calculator that you'll learn in Math 137 when you go on to that next semester. So for multiplying fractions, remember the top of a fraction is called a numerator and the bottom is called the denominator. And you just multiply across the numerators and across the denominators. So 2 times 3 is 6, 7 times 3 is 21. So the answer is 6 over 21, but then you want to ask yourself, okay, 6 over 21, but can that reduce? And when I say can it reduce, I'm asking if there is a number that goes into both 6 and 21. I usually focus on the smaller number first. So if I think about the number 6, some things that go into the number 6 are 2, 3, and 6. Those all go into 6. We call those factors, numbers that you can divide into 6. We learned about factors in a previous video. So 2, 3, and 6 happen to be the factors, 1 also, but 1 is not really going to help us. Those are the factors of 6. Do any of those numbers also go into 21? Well, I know from knowing my multiplication tables pretty well that 3 goes into 21 as well, because 3 happens to be a factor of both 6 and 21. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 3. 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2, and 21 divided by 3 is going to give me 7. This is my final answer, and I know that it can't be simplified any further because if I look at the smallest number in the final answer, which happens to be 2, the factors of 2 are 1 and 2, and 2 does not go into 7. 7 also happens to be what we call a prime number. So I got 6 over 21 by multiplying straight across, and then I reduced the fraction by dividing the top and bottom. You do have to divide the top and bottom by the same number. You can't use 3 in the top and 2 at the bottom. All right, so for number 2 here, it is a division problem. So here we have 5 over 8 divided by 4 over 6. 5 over 8 divided by 4 over 6. With division, you cannot divide two fractions. So I do something called KCF. It's keep, change, flip. Keep means you keep the first fraction as is, which is 5 over 8. Change to multiplication, and you flip the second fraction, never the first. It's keep, change, flip. So we flip the 4 6, making it 6/4. And then you follow the rules of multiplication. So with division, it actually is exactly the same as multiplication. The only difference is you have to actually change it to multiplication and remember to flip the second fraction. 4 6 becomes 6/4. That's also called a reciprocal. Flipping over a fraction is called taking the reciprocal. Now if I multiply across, I get 5 times 6, which is 30, and 8 times 4, which is 32. I know that 30 and 32 can reduce because they both end in like 0 and 2, which means they're both even numbers. So if I think to myself, what's some things that go into 30 and 32? Well, if you notice they're both even, you could always start by dividing by 2, because that will always work with even numbers. 30 divided by 2 happens to be 15. 32 divided by 2 is 16. Now if I think about the number 15, some things that go into 15 are 3 and 5, and that's really it. 1 and 15 also, but 3 and 5. And 3 and 5 do not go into 16. Things that go into 16 are like 8, 2, 4. So the factors of 15 besides 1 and 15 are 3 and 5, and they don't go into 16. So that would be my final reduced answer. And then I wanted to show one more division problem when you're, and this also is true for multiplication, when they want you to divide a fraction by a non-fraction. Just keep in mind that even though this looks maybe confusing, this is a fraction. Every number in the world can be written as a fraction. So the first thing I would do here is put it over 1 and make them both fractions. And that usually clears up any confusion you might have. So whenever you're dealing with a fraction and a whole number, always just make the whole number into a fraction as well. This is division, so I'm going to do keep, change, flip. I'm going to keep the 2/3. I'm going to change to multiplication. And 5 over 1 is going to become 1 over 5. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. And that is my final answer because 2 is a prime number. The only thing that goes into 2 is 1 and 2 does not happen to go into 15. So that's a brief review of multiplication and division. I also wanted to mention another thing that will come up in the homework. I'm just writing it out here. It says, what is 1/7 of 42? So what is like an unknown? I always use X when I see the word what. The word is in math means equals. What is? 1/7. The word of means to multiply. 42. And this is really what it looks like. You don't have to do this algebraically. I know that we haven't learned that yet. But when you see the word what is, it's like an equal sign. Basically, what they're getting at here, what I wanted to mention to you, even though the wording may look complicated, all they're really asking you to do here is find 1/7 of 42, which means they want you to multiply 1/7 and 42. It's like if you were to go out to a restaurant and you were looking for 20% of the total or 20% of your $80 restaurant bill. All of the word of means in math is to multiply. And then you would be able to multiply 1/7, putting the 42 over 1, multiplying across. You get 42 over 7, and 42 actually, 7 goes into 42 evenly 6 times. So you don't really have to do this x equals part. I was just getting you to see that whenever we see the word what in math, it is an unknown. The word is does mean equal, and the word of does mean to multiply. I will be back with a video on adding and subtracting. Thank you.